Hi folks, it's Chris in Arena Studio Land. If you want to know how you can recoup all your recording costs and make some money to pay for your next album release, then this is the video for you. So before we go any further, please give the channel a subscribe and hit that big bell icon, and then you're kept up to date with everything that goes on in Arena Studio Land. So today's video we're going to chat on how you can generate money as an artist or a band to pay for your next CD or album release. First of all, this is something that you need to look at seriously, because most UK bands that I work with don't seem to have much dare I say, clue about marketing themselves or looking at means and ways of generating money. Most bands tend to want to just gig, but gigging is the byproduct of everything else that you create, whether it's an album, whether it's a photo shoot, whether it's a video. Your end result off those products is to be able to gig and perform live. And that's the end goal, and that's a fantastic thing. You know, it really is an amazing experience when you get into all that. Before then, you have to have a product to sell. Okay, so here's what we do, or what we've done in the past. We advise the bands, once they've come in the studio and recorded an album, the band is out of pocket, maybe £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 for a week in the studio with mixing and mastering and full production, and they're out of pocket. So the problem that we then need to do is to generate the revenue to cover that cost. So some bands have banged it on credit cards or borrowed it off parents or bank loans, even all sorts of things, but you've still got to recoup those costs and pay the people that have paid for your studio time, okay? So here's what we recommend. This is how we do it. We recommend that you hire a venue. 200 people will do this. If you can get 200 people, that's brilliant. You charge £20 a ticket, okay? So 200 times 20, I'm a maths genius, £4,000. I'm not a maths genius, really. £4,000, okay? So that's what you do. You've got an invite-only select audience of 200 guests who, when they get this little bit of schmooze that, oh, you're on our guest list to come, and it's 200 guests only, restricted audience. The band are going to be playing the whole album there, and it's going to be £20 for this ticket. Boom, they'll jump at this, okay? So this is great. So then on the night you've got 200 fans who just want to be a part of the wheels in motion of you as a band doing an album launch, okay? So the 200 people then get the opportunity to buy a signed special edition copy of the CD, limited edition, with photos, signed photos of the band as well, for £10, which is going to generate another £2,000, okay? So all in all, you should be making a minimum of £6,000 on that night off 200 guests. If you can get more guests in, brilliant, because then you create more money. Now, this is all well and good on paper and in theory, but a band I worked with a few years ago, we suggested this to them, and it came down to the crux of the issue of all this problem was that they didn't have a following to be able to get 200 people in. You know, if you are Coldplay and you said, we're going to do a select gig and we want 200 people to come to this small venue, this intimate venue, and it'll be £100 a ticket, they'll sell it out like that because they've got core, loyal fans. And that's what you have to generate first. Before you hit any studio and do your EPs and your albums, you're better off going in and recording a single. Even if you spend a day in the studio for a few £100s and generate one track, if that track sounds incredible, then you've got something as an artist or a band that you can market, okay? So it's a really, dare I say, arse about face thing that people tend to do nowadays. They tend to create an album and then use that album to try and get gigs, and it's the wrong way around. You need to get a fan base and you'll recoup all that money. And it's really quite a straightforward procedure, really. The band that I'm talking about in question, they literally had about 45 fans when they came in the studio, and we didn't find this out till after 3 or 4 days of recording with them, when we decided to suggest an opportunity for them to recoup money and then make money that they could do annually, an album launch every single year. You know, I know bands that do this year on, year out, and make you know, a nice little earner, which they can then pay for the next album and any equipment and all this type of stuff. It's having your band or your artist as a career, as a business. You know, this is what you've got to do. The band that had about 45 fans, it was literally Twitter, 70 odd fans on Facebook. You know, this is how it was. And we felt so sorry for them in the end, because we realised that they'd come into the recording studio, created a great album, but nobody was going to buy it because they didn't have any fans. Literally the 45 people was mum, dad, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunties, nana, granddad, close family friends really, and a couple of mates, and that was it. And that's brutal. That's really hard to admit, that as a band, all this hard work that you put in, you've got nobody that's going to buy your stuff. So what you need to do is hit the studio, record a song, make sure even if you spend a full day on the track, get everything tracked and all your dubs good and all your vocals good and everything slick and polished, so you get a real good release quality single. Get the single mixed and mastered, and then use that as your first stepping stone for marketing you as a band or as a solo singer. Then you might create 50, 60, 70 people that are starting to get into the vibe of you as an artist. Again, probably hit the studio maybe 3 or 4 times and do 3 or 4 songs over, you know, one each visit, and then you've got maybe a year's worth of material that you can use to try and generate gigs, which will create more money, which will then create a fan base, which you can then invite to your select VIP album launch. You know, you really need to have a plan, set this marketing plan in place, single, video, photos, first thing I would suggest any band, and release a single every 3 or 4 months. Really, you know, do you really need to produce an album nowadays? Most of the artists that I work with, some do, some will do an EP. I think what most artists tend to think is that an album just does give you a little bit more credibility in the industry, that, oh yeah, we've got an album out, rather than 3 or 4 singles that we've done. But singles on their own are far more marketable than a whole album of, say, 10, 12 songs, because you've just got one product of all the songs to release, whereas you can drip feed solo tracks, you know, single tracks out there month after month after month, which keeps you in the public eye and helps raise awareness, which means you should get this select VIP fan base in place. So it's a real shock for a lot of artists and bands when this cold light of day sort of moment hits you and you go, really, we've just wasted a lot of money in a recording studio and we've got nothing to do with it. You know, so think about what your plans are as a band. Are you in it just for fun? If you just want to play in a few pubs, great. But there's so many bands I see who are more than adequate and capable of doing exceptionally well in this industry, and yet they don't take it seriously enough. You know, you are a product. You need to market yourself as a product. If nobody sees you on the shelf, nobody's going to buy you in the supermarket, are they? You know, so it's as simple as that. So it's a great way, you know, VIP guest list. People love to be given this feeling that they're important and they've been selected to go to this venue and watch. You know, so make the people that you come across with and that you communicate with as a musician, make them feel important. And also, there's nothing better that when you've done an album launch and you've sold all these albums and the photographs and you've created money, you then book in the studio next year and you know you've got plenty of time to work on your next writing sessions and get all your songs in place. But the best thing about all this is that you pick up fans all the time. And then you go to a venue and say, oh yeah, this is a 500-seater venue and we'll bring 300 people. They're going to go, right, you've got this date. You know, they want bands that will bring people in. You know, there's a big misconception with a lot of bands and artists out there that just turn up at a venue and say, there's me CD, can I have a gig, please? And they'll give you a gig, but it's soul destroying when you sat there or standing there on that stage and there's no audience. You might get 5 or 6 of the local drunks in if it's a bar in a town somewhere. You know, so it's soul destroying. You know, you need to be able to create the venues that want you. So again, going about this is a really good way of doing it, because you can say, well, look, we've got an album, we've done an album launch, we filled this venue, we did this, we got publicity. You know, so think about it seriously and take it all to another level. Some fantastic bands out there that just fall apart through lack of motivation and lack of ideas really on how to market themselves and move themselves up to another notch. There's a lot to think about there. So, you know, please give me a comment on any of this if you want to, and if I can advise you, I will do. And please give the channel a thumbs up and a like and of the old bell, like I say. And join me every Friday for a brand new video that drops here on YouTube, 8:30 AM GMT. You can join me on a Wednesday at 5:30 GMT time, live Q&A sessions. And I'm trying to throw a little 1-minute video on here every Monday on a little bit of a riff or guitar technique for you. So there's loads of things going on. And it's always great to hear from you. So stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you next week with something to do with guitars, singing, or music production.